I am 103 years old, and I need to tell you something before it's too late. I have watched friends die with regret in their eyes. I have seen strong people break over small mistakes they thought didn't matter, and I have carried truths for decades that no one told me when I was young. You think you have time. I thought so too, but life changes in one ordinary afternoon. One phone call, one diagnosis, one goodbye you didn't know was the last. If you are still young, please listen carefully. What took me 100 years to understand might save you years of pain. I lived 100 years, and if I could sit across from you right now, I would say this gently: do not postpone your life. When I was young, I believed life would begin later, after I earned enough, after I proved myself, after things became stable. I kept saying soon. Soon I will rest. Soon I will travel. Soon I will spend more time with the people I love. Soon I will take care of my health. Soon I will enjoy what I have. Soon is a very dangerous word. It sounds harmless. It sounds responsible, but it quietly steals years from you. In my 20s, I postponed joy because I was building my future. In my 40s, I postponed peace because I was protecting my responsibilities. In my 60s, I postponed rest because I was afraid of slowing down. In my 70s, I realized something was wrong. I had built a life, but I had not fully lived it. There is a difference. Most people live in preparation mode, always preparing for the next stage, the next promotion, the next milestone. But life is not a ladder. It is a moment. I remember telling my wife once, when things calm down, we will travel. Things never truly calm down. There was always something else: work, bills, worries, plans. One day her health changed. Travel was no longer possible. We had time, but we had less ability. That is when I understood something painful. Life does not wait for perfect conditions. The biggest mistake I made was believing that joy should be earned first, that rest should come after exhaustion, that love could wait until I felt secure. I treated happiness like a reward, but it is not a reward. It is part of living. Many people postpone small joys because they think they are being disciplined. They skip family dinners for extra work. They ignore their body's tiredness. They delay dreams because they seem impractical. I did all of this, and at 100 years old, I can tell you this clearly: the future you are working for will arrive, but you will not be the same person when it does. Energy changes, health changes, people change. There are things you can do at 30 that you cannot do at 80. There are words you can say today that may be impossible tomorrow. I once postponed saying "I'm proud of you" to my son. I thought he already knew. Years passed before I finally said it clearly. He smiled, but there was a small sadness in his eyes. He had waited a long time. Do not postpone words that matter. I love you. I forgive you. I'm sorry. I'm proud of you. Say them while voices are still strong enough to answer back. Another thing I postponed was taking care of my health. I thought strength was permanent. I thought pain was temporary. When I finally slowed down, my body had already collected years of neglect. If you wait until your body forces you to rest, that rest will not feel peaceful. Postponing your life often feels responsible, but sometimes it is fear: fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being ready. I waited to start certain dreams because I did not feel ready. I wanted more knowledge, more confidence. Confidence never fully comes before action. It grows during action. If I had started earlier, even imperfectly, I would have lived more fully. At 100 years old, I do not regret working hard. I regret not balancing it with living softly. I regret the sunsets I did not watch because I was busy, the walks I skipped because I was tired, the conversations I rushed because I had something important to do. Important things are often not important in memory. Simple things are. I am not telling you to abandon responsibility. Responsibility gives life structure, but do not let responsibility erase your presence. Enjoy small victories. Celebrate ordinary days. Rest without guilt. You are not here only to prepare. You are here to experience. Life is not a waiting room. It is happening while you plan. If you keep postponing happiness, you will reach a day when you finally have time, but less strength. I wake up slowly now. My steps are careful. My days are quiet. And in this quiet, I see clearly. The moments I thought were ordinary were actually precious. The days I rushed through were chapters I can never reread. Do not wait for retirement to enjoy your mornings. Do not wait for tragedy to appreciate your family. Do not wait for illness to value your health. Live now in small ways. Take the trip, even if it is short. Have the conversation, even if it is uncomfortable. Rest, even if the world says keep moving. You do not need to solve your whole future today. You only need to live this day honestly. I lived 100 years, and the biggest mistake I made was thinking I had unlimited tomorrows. You do not need to rush, but you must not postpone living. One day you will look back as I do now, and I hope you can say, I did not wait too long to live my own life. I lived 100 years. And if there is one mistake I made for far too long, it was this: I cared too much about what other people thought. When you are young, approval feels like survival. You want your parents to be proud. You want your friends to accept you. You want society to respect you. So you adjust yourself. You speak a little differently. You hide certain dreams. You say yes when your heart wants to say no. I did this for decades. I chose jobs that looked impressive instead of meaningful. I stayed quiet in moments when I should have spoken. I followed paths that were safe instead of honest. And every time I ignored my inner voice, I felt a small discomfort. At first it was easy to ignore. But over time, that discomfort became heaviness. Living for approval is exhausting. You wake up thinking about how you are perceived. You make decisions based on reactions. You measure your worth through other people's faces. But here is what 100 years taught me. Approval is temporary. Peace is permanent. The people you try to impress today will be busy with their own lives tomorrow. The crowd that claps for you will not sit beside your hospital bed. I remember working late nights, not because I loved the work, but because I loved the praise. Responsible, successful, reliable. Those words felt good, but they came at a price. I missed family dinners. I missed quiet evenings. I missed parts of my children growing up, all for applause that faded quickly. At 100 years old, I cannot even remember most of the compliments, but I remember the absences. I remember the times my wife waited, the times my children looked disappointed, the times I chose reputation over presence. You see, approval often demands sacrifice, and it usually asks you to sacrifice yourself. You begin to shape your life around expectations. You wear a version of yourself that feels acceptable, and slowly you forget who you truly are. It is not dramatic. It happens quietly. You stop asking what makes you happy. You start asking what looks good. There is a big difference. When I reached my 70s, something shifted. I was tired. Tired of performing, tired of explaining, tired of proving, and for the first time, I asked myself a simple question. If no one was watching, what kind of life would I choose? The answer was softer than I expected. I wanted simple days, honest conversations, work that felt meaningful, not impressive. But by then, much of my life had already been shaped. I am not filled with regret, but I see clearly now. When you constantly seek approval, you hand over control of your happiness. You allow other people's opinions to become your compass. But opinions change, like weather. One day you are admired, another day you are criticized. If your peace depends on that, you will never feel stable. There were moments in my life when I disappointed people by choosing differently. It felt uncomfortable at first, but something surprising happened. I slept better, because for once I was aligned with myself. You cannot live 100 years without realizing this truth. Not everyone will understand you. Not everyone will agree with you. And that is okay. Your responsibility is not to be understood by all. Your responsibility is to live honestly. I spent too many years afraid of being judged, afraid of making mistakes publicly, afraid of looking foolish. Now I smile at that fear, at 100 years old. No one remembers your small embarrassments. No one keeps a record of your awkward moments, but you remember the chances you did not take. You remember the words you did not speak. I once wanted to pursue something creative. It did not seem practical. It did not look impressive, so I ignored it. I chose something more respected. And while my life looked successful from the outside, a small part of me always wondered, what if? Peace comes when your outer life matches your inner truth. It does not mean you will never disappoint anyone. It means you stop disappointing yourself. I am not saying ignore advice. Wisdom from others can guide you. But do not surrender your identity just to avoid discomfort. Sometimes the price of approval is too high. At the end of life, no one asks how popular you were. They ask if you were kind, if you were present, if you were real. The older I became, the less I cared about being impressive, and the more I cared about being sincere. That change brought more peace than any achievement ever did. If you are still young, please understand this earlier than I did. You do not need to be everything to everyone. You do not need universal approval. You need inner quiet. You need to look at your reflection and feel calm. I lived 100 years, and the years I felt most at peace were the ones when I stopped performing and started living honestly. Do not trade your peace for applause. Applause fades. Peace stays with you until your final breath. I lived 100 years, and if there is one truth that became clearer with each passing decade, it is this: things do not sit beside you at the end. People do. When I was young, I believed security meant owning more, a bigger house, better furniture, more savings, more proof that I had made it. I worked hard for those things, and I am not ashamed of hard work, but I misunderstood something important. I thought things would make me feel safe. I thought success would make me feel full. It did not. For a short time, yes, there was pride, there was satisfaction, but it faded quickly. What stayed were relationships. I remember the day I bought my first house. I was proud. I walked through each room slowly. Today I barely remember the color of those walls, but I remember who stood in that kitchen. I remember laughter at the table. I remember late night conversations in the living room. The house was never the treasure. The people inside it were. In my middle years, I made a mistake many people make. I prioritized providing over being present. I told myself I was doing it for my family, working longer hours, accepting more pressure, and in some ways I was, but there were evenings when my children wanted my attention, and I gave them tired silence instead. There were weekends when my wife wanted a walk, and I gave her another excuse. I was building a life, but I was missing moments. At 100 years old, I can tell you clearly, no object has ever hugged me. No possession has ever asked how I feel. No achievement has ever held my hand in fear. People have. I have sat in hospital rooms. I have attended funerals. I have felt the quiet emptiness of losing someone. In those moments, you do not think about what they owned. You think about how they made you feel. You think about their smile, their voice, their presence. That is what remains. We live in a world that encourages accumulation. More money, more status, more upgrades. But accumulation without connection feels hollow. I once knew a man who spent his whole life building wealth. He succeeded greatly, but when he grew old, his house was large and quiet. His children visited rarely. His friendships had faded. He had everything except company. That loneliness is heavy. I learned something important as I aged. Time invested in people gives returns that last longer than money ever can. A conversation may seem small today, but it becomes a memory tomorrow. A shared meal may seem ordinary, but it becomes warmth years later. When you choose work over people occasionally, that is life. But when you choose work over people consistently, that becomes regret. I have regrets. Not about the money I did not make, but about the evenings I rushed. Not about the car I did not buy, but about the phone calls I delayed. At 100 years old, my world is smaller. I move slower. I need help sometimes. And do you know what matters now? Who calls? Who visits? Who sits quietly beside me without needing anything? Those moments feel priceless. You may think you have time to repair relationships later, but distance grows quietly. Silence becomes habit. Pride becomes barrier. And one day the chance is gone. I have seen people regret broken relationships more than financial failure. Money problems can be solved. Broken connections are harder to rebuild. Choose people while you can. Choose to listen instead of winning arguments. Choose to show up instead of sending apologies. Choose to forgive instead of keeping score. At the end of life, you will not count your possessions. You will count your memories. You will remember who celebrated with you, who supported you, who stayed when things were difficult. I look back now, and the brightest parts of my memory are not achievements, they are faces. My mother's gentle patience, my father's quiet strength, my wife's steady support, my children's laughter. Those are treasures. If I could speak to my younger self, I would say this: Earn what you need, but do not sacrifice connection for comfort. Success feels good for a moment. Belonging feels good for a lifetime. You do not need a perfect house. You need a warm one. You do not need endless recognition. You need someone who truly knows you. I lived 100 years, and I promise you this: the things you protect so carefully will one day belong to someone else, but the love you give will stay in the hearts of others long after you are gone. Choose people over things, because when the room grows quiet, it is not your possessions that make you feel rich. It is who is still sitting beside you. I lived 100 years, and if there is one lesson that became louder with age, it is this: your health is not guaranteed, it is borrowed. When you are young, your body feels strong. You wake up quickly. You move without thinking. You recover without effort. You believe this strength is normal. You believe it will always be there. I believe that too. In my 30s and 40s, I ignored small warnings: back pain, fatigue, stress that never fully left. I told myself I was busy. I told myself I was still young. I told myself I would slow down later. Later is a dangerous promise. The body keeps score quietly. Every skipped rest, every night of poor sleep, every year of unmanaged stress. It does not complain loudly at first. It whispers, and most of us do not listen to whispers. We wait for the shout. For me, the shout came in my late 60s. Sudden weakness, doctor visits, words I was not prepared to hear. In that moment I realized something painful. I had treated my body like a machine, something to push, something to use. But it was never a machine. It was my home. You can rebuild a house. You can replace a car. But your body is given only once, at 100 years old. I move slowly. I need support sometimes. Simple tasks require patience, and I do not complain because I know I am fortunate to still be here. But I wish I had cared earlier. Health is not only about avoiding illness, it is about protecting your ability to live fully, to walk without fear, to travel without exhaustion, to sit comfortably with the people you love. When health fades, everything becomes harder, even joy. I remember times when my family planned gatherings. I wanted to join fully, but my energy was limited. That limitation hurts more than people understand. You do not realize how precious simple movement is until it becomes difficult. Bending down, climbing stairs, sleeping without pain, these are quiet gifts. In my younger years, I sacrificed sleep for productivity. I sacrificed calm for ambition. I ignored stress because it felt normal. Stress may feel common, but it is not harmless. Years of tension change a person, not just physically, emotionally. When your body is tired, your patience weakens, your kindness becomes thinner, your joy feels distant. Health affects everything. I used to think taking care of myself was selfish, that rest was laziness. Now I know the truth. Taking care of your health is not selfish, it is responsibility, because when you are healthy, you can show up better for others. You can listen more patiently, love more gently, live more freely. I have seen strong people become fragile quickly. I have seen vibrant friends become dependent. Time changes us all, but how we care for ourselves matters. I am not speaking only about diet or exercise, though those are important. I am speaking about balance. Work without destroying yourself. Rest without guilt. Move your body daily. Protect your peace. Your mind is part of your health too. For many years, I carried worry like it was necessary. Constant thinking, constant planning. I did not realize how much that tension was costing me. Peace is medicine. Silence is medicine. Laughter is medicine. If I could speak to my younger self, I would say, do not wait for illness to value your health. Do not wait for weakness to appreciate strength. Protect your body while it is strong. Protect your mind while it is clear. At 100 years old, I have learned this simple truth. Money can return. Opportunities can return. Even relationships can sometimes be repaired. But lost health rarely returns fully. You may think you are too young to worry. That is exactly when you should care. Small habits become long-term consequences. A short walk today becomes independence later. A calm conversation today becomes lower stress tomorrow. A good night's sleep today becomes clarity for years. I am grateful for my long life, but I feel every year in my bones. If I had shown my body more respect earlier, these later years might have been lighter. Do not punish your future self for the comfort of today. You do not need perfection. You need awareness. Listen to your body. Listen to your exhaustion. Listen to your stress. Do not silence it with distractions. One day you will reach an age where your body moves differently. When that day comes, you will either feel gratitude or regret. I lived 100 years, and I can tell you this with calm certainty. Your health is the foundation of your entire life. Protect it now, because once it begins to fade, you will understand how priceless it truly was.